Hello, thanks for joining us this morning. Just in the last few minutes, the energy regulator Ofgem has announced a rise in the cap on energy prices. The cap will go up by 0.2%. Now, this affects how much you pay for your energy bills every month, and the change means that companies can keep bills stubbornly high.
The line of need appeared an hour before the food bank even opened. The pressures facing this neighbourhood in East London are felt across the country. Britain's next Prime Minister faces a long list of challenges, but perhaps the most pressing is how to tackle the cost of living crisis so people stay fed and warm.
Nearly 2 million British households are burning through cash as heating oil prices double in a week, and Downing Street's £50 million scramble might be too little, too late. Nearly 2 million British households are currently caught in a fiscal stranglehold as heating oil prices double in a single week, forcing a beleaguered Downing Street to scramble for a £50 million support package, while the shadow of the Iran conflict looms over every rural fuel tank in the country. If that sentence did not make you stop scrolling, read it again. Because what is unfolding right now in the heating oil market is not a seasonal blip or a manageable inconvenience. It is a structural exposure of everything that is wrong with how this country thinks about energy security, and the people paying the price are the ones who can least afford it. The brutal reality of living off the gas grid has never been more apparent than it is this March. While those connected to the mains can hide behind the somewhat frayed shield of the energy price cap, 1.7 million homes, predominantly in rural England, Wales, the Scottish Highlands, and over half of Northern Ireland, are being fed directly into the meat grinder of global market volatility. In the space of just 14 days, the price of kerosene 28 has rocketed from a manageable 66 pence per litre to a staggering 128 pence. That is not a rounding error. That is not a seasonal adjustment. That is your heating bill, doubled, while the government was busy workshopping press releases about clean energy superpowers and working people. This is not just a price hike. It is an economic assault on some of the most geographically isolated and politically underserved communities in the United Kingdom. Chancellor Rachel Reeves claims to have found the money in the Treasury sofa cushions to help the poorest households. But for the working people Sir Keir Starmer vows sincerely to protect, the whatever challenges lie ahead rhetoric is starting to sound an awful lot like a permanent state of crisis management dressed in a very expensive suit. Welcome to British Energy, the destination for the politically astute who demand a higher standard of reporting on the power dynamics that actually dictate your quality of life. We do not do these sanitized, everything is under control version of the news. We provide forensic, mature, and unapologetically sharp analysis that treats you like a functioning adult with a stake in this country's future. Before we go any further, I want to genuinely plead with you. Take a breath. Stay informed, and if you value this kind of unvarnished reporting, please support our work by hitting that subscribe button right now. Independent channels like British Energy are among the very few bulwarks left against the curated narratives of the mainstream press. Your subscription is not a passive gesture. It is an act of solidarity with independent political journalism that answers to nobody but the truth. Subscribe now to British Energy, and let us look unflinchingly at what this Middle Eastern volatility is actually costing ordinary people in this country.
Mary is a working mum of 4 from Stirlingshire. She says almost every penny she earns is spent on trying to keep her house warm.
Just getting up and going to work knowing it's going to go in a metre is so difficult. Anything for £30 to £50 a day. My TV doesn't even work, no tumble dryer, no hot tub at my back garden. That's just my normal boiler.
Scottish Power discovered a problem with Mary's boiler, but she's still waiting for a replacement. She's worried about how she'll cope in the months ahead.
Just dreading the cost going up so much because it's just going to get worse and worse. I've got over £2,000 in rent arrears. It's either feed my meter or pay my rent.
Mary is just one of thousands of households across the country concerned as household budgets face their biggest challenge yet. Tomorrow, the energy price cap will increase, meaning average bills will rise by almost £700, from £1,300 to almost £2,000 a year.
It's happening because the price of wholesale gas on the global market has been really high. The prices started to increase last year as a result of economies opening up around the world after the COVID pandemic, but it's been further exacerbated by things like the war in Ukraine.
42. Jean lives on her own in Glasgow on a state pension.
over £390 odd for my gas, and the same for my electricity, £390 odd as well. That's a big jump, so it is. And I'm worrying about it, you know.
And as for students like Povilas, higher bills are an additional stress on top of studies.
Me and my flatmate got an energy bill last month that was in the region of £360, which we were not expecting. We were expecting it to be around 160 max. I need to cut back on certain luxuries and things like that, as well as certain types of foods.
The Scottish and UK governments have announced measures to ease the crisis, but for many it won't be enough. Citizens Advice Scotland says anyone who is struggling should seek advice.
So Scotland has a greater proportion of prepayment meters than the rest of Great Britain, and the people who are on prepayment meters in Scotland are also more likely to be in fuel poverty, and among certain groups that might be extreme fuel poverty, so they're spending a significant portion of their income. We're expecting that to get significantly worse.
People are being reminded to submit meter readings by midnight tonight ahead of the price jump.
The mechanics of this crisis are particularly cruel because of how heating oil is bought and sold, and it's worth spending a moment here because the structure of this market is the story. Unlike gas or electricity, which are typically governed by 12-month contracts with colossal firms, heating oil is the wild west of the energy sector. It is bought as and when needed from a fragmented network of around 120 regional, often family-run distributors, scattered across the country with no central coordination and no price cap in sight. There is no lag in this market. When Brent crude spikes because the Strait of Hormuz is under threat, the price at the Newport or Ballymena fuel depot changes by lunchtime. The volatility is not filtered or cushioned or delayed. It arrives immediately, directly, and without apology into the account of whoever just picked up the phone to order a top-up. Some providers are currently telling customers they can't even offer an accurate quote until the day before delivery. Think about what that means practically. You cannot plan a weekly shop around it. You cannot adjust a fixed income to accommodate it. You simply wait, you hope, and you pay whatever number comes down the line that day. It is a real-time extraction of wealth from rural communities, and the discrepancy in pricing across different parts of the country has become a postcode lottery that nobody in their right mind chose to enter. If you find it simultaneously fascinating and entirely galling that your ability to heat your home in March 2026 depends in part on whether the United Kingdom deploys mine-hunting drones to the Persian Gulf, then you are precisely the kind of sharp-minded, engaged viewer that British Energy was built to serve. We track the institutional rot, the political doublespeak, and the character collapses of UK energy governance with a forensic eye and a faintly sardonic edge, and we are not going anywhere.
Make absolutely sure you are subscribed so you do not miss our upcoming deep dive into why Ed Miliband is suddenly hinting at a U-turn on fuel duty, a development that deserves considerably more public scrutiny than it is currently receiving from anyone with a television camera. Hit that subscribe button, because your presence here is what keeps this channel alive and asking the questions nobody else will. There is a technical dimension to all of this that the mainstream commentariat consistently failed to mention, presumably because nuance does not trend particularly well.
So, we're on this. Paul, morning to you. So, what is going on? Because we thought it was going to fall. It's actually gone up.
Yeah, we were expecting a small decline in the price cap. It has risen. It's risen by 0.2%. Ofgem, the regulator, uses this very broad measure of average use for an average home using both gas and electricity. And it amounts to about £3 over the course of a year, this increase. So not much in the scheme of things. The really interesting thing that's going on here is that price has gone up, albeit a small amount, and it's gone up despite the wholesale price driven mainly by gas. Of course, we all remember how that pushed prices up. That's fallen 4% over the last 3 months of the measures, but bills have still gone up because we've been told for a long time, haven't we, that gas prices fall, our bills will fall. Well, the reason is some of the costs of shifting our energy network away from fossil fuels. There's one in particular in here. For the first time, consumers are now starting to pay for the construction of Sizewell C, big nuclear power station. It's about £1 a month, averages about £10 a year.
While only around 10 to 15% of the UK's general crude oil imports originate from the Middle East, for heating oil, a kerosene product that is chemically far closer to jet fuel than it is to the gas running through your neighbor's boiler, that regional dependency leaps to approximately 40%. We are, in practical terms, competing with international airlines for the same refined product. And with the Middle East in a state of sustained instability, those airlines carry considerably deeper pockets than a retired civil servant in Inverness trying to get through to the end of April on a fixed pension.
Ken Cronin of the UK and Ireland Fuel Distributors Association has noted that while this market reacts with brutal speed on the upside, it can also correct rapidly when supply pressure eases. During the pandemic, when commercial aircraft were grounded across the globe and demand for kerosene collapsed, you could fill your domestic tank for 25 pence a litre. Today, you are paying 5 times that figure. It is a market with no meaningful shock absorbers, and the 1.7 million homes relying on it are absorbing every tremor from every confrontation in the Gulf, as though they were positioned directly beneath the fault line. The government's response, a £50 million support package, sounds suitably decisive until you divide it by the number of affected households and businesses and realize it amounts to something in the region of a modest one-off payment for a problem that is structural, recurring, and getting worse. Meanwhile, Ed Miliband finds himself in the uncomfortable position of weighing geopolitical strategy in the Strait of Hormuz against the very immediate domestic fury of a rural population that has, with considerable justification, had enough of feeling like an afterthought in the national energy conversation. Major distributors are urging customers not to panic buy, which is the kind of advice that sounds perfectly reasonable from a corporate communications team in Cheshire and utterly disconnected from reality in a farmhouse in County Fermanagh, where 60% of homes heat with oil and the price has doubled in a fortnight. It is a fundamental failure of energy security, and it has been decades in the careful, cross-party making. Stay with British Energy as we monitor the Prime Minister's announcement and translate every syllable of the support for working people sloganeering into actual pounds and pence that mean something to an actual household. This situation is moving faster than the government's ability to respond to it, and being a subscriber is the only way to ensure you are reading the patterns before they harden into catastrophe. Subscribe now and join a community that values forensic accuracy over political theater. We are among the very few still asking why, in 2026, nearly 2 million homes are heating themselves through logistics that belong to a previous century, while their elected representatives deliver speeches about Britain becoming a clean energy superpower. The reality of this march is that the superpower rhetoric is meeting the cold arithmetic of global geopolitics, and the collision is not pretty. You can pledge all the green investment you like from a podium in Westminster, but if you cannot secure the fuel for the homes that are not on your grid, you are not governing, you are reacting. The volatility of this market is a warning shot aimed squarely at the entire architecture of UK energy strategy, and it is landing in the fuel tanks of people who did not fire it and simply cannot afford to keep absorbing it. This has been British Energy. Watch every one of our updates to the very end. That is always where the sharpest analysis lives. Stay informed, stay skeptical, and remember that your subscription is the lifeblood of independent political reporting. The mainstream will call this a temporary spike. We will show you it is a symptom. Come back and find out of what.